To love life again, so I'd stopped loving life, and I did go and see a psychologist. Not that it helped me that much. There was time, but
Good evening, Australia. Welcome to the show. I'm Michael Kuzilny. I've got a great man on the couch tonight, Richard Stockman. Now, this guy's amazing. You might have seen him around Melbourne or in Sydney or around the world somewhere. Australia's first Indian-born winemaker. You might have heard the brand Stockman's Wines. I've seen it, you know, when I go to the different bottle shops over the years. I open up and it's one of the best wines. There's Chardonnay, there's... What else is there?
Shiraz.
Shiraz.
Yes, my specialty moving forward will be Pinot Noir.
Wow. Now, you must be the most exciting guy at the dinner table. You know, there's people, you know, how they twirl their glass around and, you know, all that bullshit, and they don't even know what they're doing, you know? Talking about the legs and this sort of stuff. Can you imagine being on the dining table with this great man, you know?
Michael, when I was younger and when I studied winemaking, I actually was listening to a guy next to me talking about wine, and he didn't stop the whole night, so I said, I'm not going to do that. So I talk very few words about myself, I guess, but yeah.
And he does, but he's got so much to share, and a lot of people would have heard him on his radio show on SEN, and it's called...
The Stockman's Breakfast.
The Stockman's Breakfast, an exciting show, exciting guests, and that's at the moment is at...
Well, it's actually, we're taking a break, and 1377 it was on, so SEN bought 3MP, and that's actually been resold, but I'm looking at getting on 3AW in the next couple of months, February, March.
This is amazing, and so positive, so confident, so authentic, gone through difficult times, went through a divorce, went through other things, but he knows how to get on top of life, and now he's also a counsellor. Now, this is amazing. How do you fit it all in?
Yeah, look, just managed to. I'm sleeping less these days, but I mean, you know yourself, achieving a lot, that you can achieve a lot, can't you? So, yeah, look, there's a lot of hours in the day.
You're a beautiful soul, Richard. Thanks for making the time. It's been a difficult year, hasn't it?
Look, it has been, but it was difficult before COVID for me, and probably more mentally just wondering where I am at life at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I think COVID's probably been a saviour grace for me. It's a saving grace, yeah.
This is interesting. Yeah. And isn't it amazing, Richard? So people can sometimes look at us and think, oh, everything is going so well in their lives, when deep down a lot of us go home and we're lonely and feel quite isolated.
100%, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think what's happened here is COVID's got me closer to my family, and that's what's important to me. And when I first big down, the big bottom of the roller coaster you'll find is to do with family, but it brought me back closer to my wife, who is the world to me, and yeah, it just really sparked me again with my wife this year, spending so much time with her.
You are such I reckon you're one of God's angels He sent down, Richard Stockman, you know. I love the life journeys. Where did it all start? Born in India?
So born in New Delhi, yes. In India, and came over when I was 2. So my mother was pregnant when she came over, and I had an older brother who came with us too.
Mum and Dad moved where?
We started off in Broadmeadows, Coolaroo.
Oh, good old Broady. Yeah, good. Was John Ilhan around then?
No.
Crazy John?
Yeah, no.
No. So Broady.
Yeah.
And bit of domestic violence there.
Yeah, lots. Look, I can't remember much before the age of sort of 6, but I do remember. All I can remember is domestic violence. I remember being in the front room of the house in Broadmeadows and the police sirens outside, and so I must have been about 4 or 5 at the time. And I remember my birth father, Dad, sitting on the bed with a knife by the side of the bed, and I'm just sitting there waiting, and that's just one story. All I remember, blood on the walls and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
That's and isn't it beautiful? We'll talk about forgiveness later because you catch up with him, don't you?
yeah, I'll see him lately once every 2 years, but I hadn't seen him until the age of about 30, and then I went and seeked him out.
And then in those days, growing up, was there a lot of racism in those days?
There was, and it's not his excuse for drinking or whatever he did, but when he first came here, he wasn't the man or the person that he was over in India, so I think violence came into it.
And what I was going to ask you is, you saw this domestic violence, and a lot of magistrates say, Mr. Kuzilny, alcohol is the devil's curse, and I say sometimes, if it wasn't for the grog, a lot of these courts would be out of work, and you are an industry where you could have quite easily become an alcoholic.
Yeah, that's right. Look, and I even going through wine school when I studied winemaking, they said that about 70 or 80% of winemakers have an issue with alcohol. Maybe not alcoholism, but have an issue with alcohol.
Richard, it's an amazing journey, and it's completely different to the journey of the crowd. So Mum and Dad split up and went separate ways.
Yes.
Mum repartnered.
Yes. So my mum remarried in 1976 when I was 7. And that was with a stepfather, which weren't as common in those days. And he was an Anglo-Saxon white stepfather, and he was also a doctor. He founded 2 clinics in Melbourne's north, and at that time we went out and purchased a vineyard as well.
This is amazing. So he came along, and how old were you when he came along?
So I was 7.
You were 7, and you. It sounds like you probably moved out of Broadmeadows. And where did you move to?
Yeah, we moved to Viewbank.
Viewbank.
Yeah. And that's what
and he loved his wine?
Yeah, he absolutely loved it. And in fact, he always said that if he could give up his medical practice, he would have a lot earlier.
Isn't amazing? And he became your role model?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, and he's gone. He left us, did he?
Yes, he did.
How long did he go?
In 2010.
God bless him. How's Mum?
She's great, yeah. She's well, she's got health issues like a lot of us at 75. She's now.
So you then embark at a very early age. I think at 17, you show an interest for the wine industry.
Yeah, I was sort of more because I was reasonably intelligent at school, and I was more destined to be in the medical field, to maybe aim to be a doctor.
Right.
But unfortunately, my older brother is a year older than me. Suffered from schizophrenia, and him and I really clashed. When I was doing my year 12, he made it very hard for me. So I had to reassess what I was doing.
We might talk about that reassessment after the break, but thank you very much for coming on. Richard Stockman, a great man. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the show. I love this man. As soon as he came through the door, I could feel the energy. You can feel people's energy. You can feel people where they're wearing their social masks or authenticity. Really decent fella, and I reckon we'll be mates for a long time. He's not his titles, but he's now a counsellor, an amazing winemaker, and also has got a degree in enology. Is that right?
Enology, yeah,
Enology.
Which is winemaking.
At the prestigious South Australian Winemaking School.
Yep, Roseworthy College,
yeah.
And it's now part of Adelaide University.
Isn't that amazing? How'd you end up there?
So, yeah, well, after school, I wasn't supposed to go down that direction, but I was more in the chemistry side of things, which enology does have.
Yeah.
I applied for my main preference here, which I got but I really struggled in year 12, and then my father had a look at my mark and said, look, we can get you in there. So I think he pulled a few strings, because there's a few people that didn't get in that
right.
It was a pretty amazing class too. We had Peter Gager, who makes the Grange now, Penfolds Grange. Stephen Pannell. There's just an amazing list of probably the best class ever that went through.
Isn't it amazing?
Roseworthy, winemakers that you'll know, and it's big brands. And I was the youngest person to ever go there, so I was 17 in 3 months. But I think part of the reason I went, I was mentioning about a schizophrenic brother, or a brother who suffers from schizophrenia, sort of to push me away and let me, let us not be together. And I understand that too, because he was going through.
So did you end up living there?
Yes, lived on.
How long for?
Oh, well, when you say the degree, I did 1 year. I did pass the first year. I deferred because it wasn't for me, and then I joined the Navy. So
wow.
I only lived there for 1 year.
How long in the Navy?
In the Navy for 3 years. And served in the first Gulf War.
Is that amazing?
1989.
What was that like?
Oh, look, it was... people, when you first got on your ship, I was on a destroyer. Most of the guys, their parents and so were proud of them because they were in the Navy. Mine was the opposite. My family, my father wanted me to keep going with the enology at the time, take over the winery, but I chose to go down a different path.
This is amazing. And when you you're more Aussie than Indian, aren't you? When do you go to the Indian clubs, or do you associate with the community?
I am now, and usually, I mean, I'm probably more than anything, I think of myself as a business person, Michael, and just through my line of work, I've discovered that India is a big market. I discovered that a few years ago, that we were going to be in touch.
Beautiful market, beautiful people.
So I've got in touch with them a lot more for the business.
That is so amazing. I was going to ask you, when you were talking about wines, Hamilton Island, I remember there was a beautiful label there. What was the guy who owned Hamilton Island? He had a wine label, didn't he? I'm just trying to think.
No, I'm not sure.
He's passed away now, but anyway, that's me thinking about wine. But look, this is quite amazing. So when you go to a restaurant, it'd be hard for you to be pleased with the wines?
Oh, look, no, not really, no, because I appreciate, I love to taste people's homemade wines, and I really see beauty in everything, and people are making that from their own passion, and I think, there is an element of what tastes better and what wins awards, but I think everything's got someone's.
Does an elite winemaker like you ever drink the cheap wine?
Not really, no. I tend to, even some of my own wines that I don't like, I won't drink, so to speak. But I tend to drink my better wines. But that's your own taste. But
this is amazing. First Indian-born Australian winemaker, and where's the winery?
So my parents had the winery outside of Heathcote. It's a place called Northwood for almost 40 years.
Yes.
From 76 till not too long ago. We've sold that, and I've got 8 acres in Diamond Creek.
Yes.
It's actually inherited some Shiraz, but I'm doing just Pinot Noir there. Wow. And I'm actually making it at different locations at the moment.
That's
so we don't officially have the winery at Diamond Creek.
How often do you go there? Every day?
At Diamond Creek? No. Yeah. No, well, I live there, and then I'll go and make the wine elsewhere in other spots,
Has there been a time when, like a lot of people go through difficult times over the last 12 months, but has there been a time when you've gone through really difficult times and you just grab some of the wine and get pissed? I would. It's there.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. No. Look, I'm very responsible.
You're very responsible.
Well, even through this COVID, we've got a lot of good customers.
Yeah.
And we're very mindful of how much we're actually selling to each customer too, because I think we're smaller, but so we can do that. But we're trying
amazing.
to be
and all the other winemakers, and you're very community focused. You went through a difficult time, you're saying on the break, when your relationship fell apart.
That was the big one, yes. That was
what happened?
One. So basically everything happened in our 18 years of marriage. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Not of any fault of our own. But just everything happened. So we came to the point that it was just it was almost hard to look at each other in a way. Well, my wife found it maybe hard to look at me, but everything went wrong. So on the 8th of the 8th at 8 o'clock in the morning, my wife tapped me on the shoulder.
8th of the 8th, which year?
8th of the 8th, 2008.
Right.
So
oh my God! Yeah.
As soon as it clicked over to 8, she tapped me over the shoulder and said, "I've got your bags packed outside." So I grabbed my bags and I went and lived in the warehouse for a little bit, just on the couch, and darkest time of my life.
8th of the 8th.
Of the 8th.
What were you feeling at the time?
Look, you want to try to talk things out, as you always do. You're a problem solver, and there was obviously kinks in the marriage, but she just didn't want to talk. And she only said maybe a handful of words to me on the way out, and that was it. So, just a lot of despair was important to me. My marriage, I think, was my first girlfriend that I'd met, and I wanted to make her, going into it, the happiest woman in the world, but I probably...
You are such a gentleman.
Well, she was probably the unhappiest woman in the world at the time, so...
You're a beautiful soul. Maybe she had some personal issues she was going through. But there's a lot of guys out there and women out there going through a similar thing, and they're not quite there yet. What's some of the advice you can give to, you go through that 18 or 2 year, sometimes 3 year process of finding yourself again, because also like there's a lot of friends, isn't there? It's really like smashing everything on the ground and starting by yourself. But after the break, we might get some tips from you on how to sort of, move out of that to the next stage and be happy again. We'll be back very shortly with a great man, Richard Stockman. The great man Richard Stockman, the first Indian-born Australian winemaker, started his spectacular career at the age of 17, went to a prestigious wine school in South Australia called Roseworthy.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Whew, my memory's a bit like a sieve, but this is amazing. 2 different worlds. And so many questions, but when you go to a restaurant, do you sometimes embarrass the waiter by asking about the wine? No,
quite the opposite.
Yeah.
I think, you don't want to utilise what you know to embarrass anybody, I think. So, I try to... Everyone's at different levels, aren't they, of things?
Sure.
So,
And what's your favourite drop?
It has to be Shiraz.
Yeah.
And, probably from McLaren Vale. There's a few different places I like down there.
And this is a very important question. Tell us about the health benefits of wine.
Yeah, well, wine's got resveratrol. It's got a lot of great antioxidants. So do blueberries. I tried, in my farm, I planted almost 1,000 blueberry plants, but I didn't do that as well. They've all pretty much died. So, but they've got a good property of resveratrol as well. So it is good for you.
Folks, I'm so impressed Richard took the time in this crazy busy world to come here. He's doing so many things. He's a counsellor. He's got a beautiful family. He's got the vineyard. He's starting to do his radio show again. And when you went through that difficult time of the breakup and everything, and going back to the 8th of the 8th, 2008 in the warehouse, what were you thinking?
I was thought of helplessness, and nothing was worth anything. And I think we were looking at some tips and moving forward, and what changed, I guess, took a lot of time, but that there is so much beauty around, and if you can appreciate even that in your previous partner as well. So I mean, she doesn't really want to talk to me too often, even though we share the same son. She will now and then. Actually, we went for dinner which is pretty strange, with my wife right now, and her and my son for his 18th
beautiful.
birthday. Yeah, so, but just seeing that, she's a good person. And
now that's some really good advice. And there's a lot of people who go, no, not going to talk to her. She's a bitch. No, he's a prick. He's done this. Forgiveness, we don't want to end up having this resentment going on in our operating system for the rest of our lives. I saw this with my father, who never spoke to his brother Victor, and the Victor recently died in Germany, and I could just see the anguish, but we used to say, why don't you ring Victor? Some stupid dispute over their mother's will, so it's beautiful how you made peace with your father, with ex-wife, and even with your brother, who used to beat you up sometimes. Yeah?
Yes. Yep.
So
still does sometimes.
So I represented this very old, beautiful Jewish lady who then told me she grew up in Auschwitz, and she saw a whole family die it got burnt. She said she would smell the flesh of her family, and she just had this smile. She ended up becoming a child psychologist, but as she walked over the road there at the Melbourne Magistrates Court, I thought, what a beautiful soul. I said, what's one advice you can give me before you go, my beautiful lady? She said, Michael, a life that soon is past, only what's done with love will last. It's so important, isn't it? Love. Mm-hmm. It's not about the stuff, because there's no pack racks on coffins, is there, Richard?
Exactly.
There's been plenty of wealthy people who are unhappy. You're very calm, Richard. Meditation or faith?
No, I mean, I don't. It's a funny story about faith because I used to go to church as a youngster on my own behalf because my father and mother weren't really religious people. And I used to go all the time. And I said to the Reverend one time, it was an interesting story because I said to him, what happens to little dogs? I was only 16, and cats. And he said to me, and he put his arm around me, he said, son, they've got soul, but they haven't got spirit. And I didn't know what that meant. And I went back home and I just thought about it and looked at the dog and his eyes, and I just thought, oh, look, I don't know. And then I didn't give up religion, but what I did is I stopped going to church, but I still believe in magic and a higher being and something beautiful that's obviously higher than us.
I could feel that. You're a beautiful soul. And what were the tips again for some of the viewers? Some simple and short tips how to get out of the rut.
Yeah, just to love life again. So yeah. I'd stopped loving life, and I did go and see a psychologist. Not that it helped me that much. It was time that helped me. Look, I've spoken to a lot of pretty high profile people. James Heard, his first radio interview after his downfall and really trying to end his life, and he came in and he had an interview with me. And look, I've got a great relationship with him, and he asked me a couple of times. We went up to Wagga Wagga a couple of years later, and he said, Richard, what's the answer? And I said, time, James. Time heals. Time helps.
That's beautiful. And tell me about your the role as a counsellor. Are we going to see you as the Prime Minister soon? Yeah. That'd be great.
No, look, it's just about helping people and just, it's really what I do anyway, but now it's more of an official role, I guess.
Amazing.
And you've got a little bit more of a title to do more things. So
yeah, when did you take that role up?
Just in November.
Mm-hmm. And where's that? Where can people find you?
So it's in Blue Lake. So it's just plenty Yarrambat and a part of Greensboro.
So if the residents in Blue Lake want something changed, they can see the great man Richard Stockman. Do they just knock on the door, or can they call you?
No, they can call me, and you can probably, I think my number's easy to find. To put in Stockman and Richard in Google and you'll find me somewhere.
How long have you been in that role?
So just since November.
Have there been any crazy people wanting crazy demands?
Oh, look, everybody wants a demand, and that's going to be the hardest thing. I mean, we won't have time to touch on my career, and the one that I wanted to do was an air traffic controller, and I was that in Canada, and that was very mechanical. And I always said, people said, what's it like being an air traffic controller? And I said, well, we handle stresses differently. I would struggle to be a primary school teacher because I'd want to be trying to help every kid. And then if you've got an agenda to follow and one kid's falling behind or whatever, I'd get distracted. And that's what council's like too. I try to help every case.
This is amazing.
Every case can
Viewers,
help.
Isn't Richard Stockman a beautiful man? Authentic, successful, and just says it the way it is. What's your purpose in life?
So, yeah, that's a big one. The purpose is to make as many people as I can happy, and that's sometimes there's hardships in that too. So it's some people actually say that I'm not such a nice person, Michael, as well, because when I was in the Navy, our role was to stop boats coming into Australia. That was our role, and that's your purpose of that particular time is to do that. And I took that sort of seriously, at the time. But then, you look at the greater purpose and where you can contribute and where you can give. So the more successful I can be, if I can give back more, that's what my purpose is.
And one last question to the great man. What would you say to young people who are just sort of embarking on adult life? They just left school. What's one tip you can share? About the life journey? Yeah, look, it's attitude. Just have a really positive, good attitude. I mean, sometimes the demons can be outside of your head, but if you've got good, positive attitude inside your head, you can overcome most things. Amazing. Thank you for making the time. I honour and respect you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for coming in, and I honour and respect you, everybody. Love and best wishes. If you're going through some difficult times, remember it's all impermanent. All the good things never last, and all the bad things can't last either. Good night.